Advanced revenue management, creating the fair value price list. Alright, so this is the last in the fair value setup videos. Right, so let's go to Suite Answer 49181. Let's go and have a look there. 49181. The fair value price list enables you to create different fair value rules for different items and item revenue categories. To create the list, you add fair value price records. The fair values for items are used to allocate revenue in revenue arrangements. The fair value price permission controls access to the fair value page. The permissions belongs to the list permission type. You can edit fair value prices after you add them. Any changes you make apply to new customer performance obligations only. They do not affect existing revenue elements and arrangements. Right, so if you go and edit them and change them, that is only going to be working for the future, not for anything in the past. Fair value price record is available in transaction searches in the Allocation Details field. The results for the fair value price record shows the internal ID. You can import your fair value price list. For more instructions and an example of the file structure, see fair value price CSV import. To add a fair value price record, go to Setup, Accounting, Revenue, Fair Value Price Lists, New. So let's go do that. Sorry, 1 second. Alright, so you go Setup, Accounting, go down to Revenue, Fair Value Price List. Right, so you can see I've set up a couple of them. And so let's go and look at one of these. Right, so there I've got my base fair value. I've got my item revenue category. It says the item. Got not much else there. And then I have this one here, default fair value formula. Right, so let's go back to the Suite Answer. Go to Setup. I've showed you that. Select an item or item revenue category. Alright, so I've got an item revenue category and an item in this specific case. If you select an item that belongs to a category, the item revenue category field is automatically populated, right? Because the minute you pick that, it knows what this is going to be. If you select an item revenue category, you can leave item blank, because now you're dealing with the entire category, all the items involved included in that category. In base fair value, enter the base fair value for the item. The value is used for range checking, right? So if I go back to my list here, you'll see I've got my base fair value in that column there. Select an option from the currency list. This field is available only when the multiple currencies feature is enabled. Right, and you'll see I have my multi-currency feature enabled, so I do have currency there. Right, and this currency this is coming, give me 1 second. Alright, so that currency comes from the setup. So when you set it up, you actually put this currency in yourself here, right? Let's go back to the answer. Select an option. Oops, sorry. Oops. Oh, sorry, I had my elbow on the 0 there. Sorry. Right. Select an option from the default fair value formula list. If the item revenue category you select includes a fair value formula, that value is selected by default. To add formulas to the list, click the new button. Right, so in the previous video, or I guess 2 videos ago, if you go and look here at my list, there in 8.1.1 I added a fair value, right, formula. If the item revenue category, yes, we've done that. Enter the following optional values. So these are optional, right? So that's why you'll see here in NetSuite, there's a bunch of them that I have not filled because they're optional, right? Subsidiary, this is a list available only in One World accounts. I do have a One World account, so you'll see there's my subsidiary. Accounting book, I'm not using multi-book, so you won't see accounting book. source type. Right, there's source type. This list enables to create fair value prices that are specific to the type of revenue source. By default, the fair value price applies to any source that matches the other criteria. Customer project. This list enables you to create fair value prices that are specific to a customer. Right, so this can be really handy. By default, the fair value price applies to any customer or project that matches the other criteria. Fair value range checking policy. This list and its related fields appear only when the enable fair value range checking accounting preference is checked. The policy price with its the policy determines the value to use in the allocation ratio by comparing an item's discounted sales price with its calculated fair value. If the item revenue category you select includes a fair value range checking policy, that value is selected by default. When you select a fair value range checking policy, the following additional fields are required regardless of the option you select. Low value percent, enter a percent of the base fair value to set the low end of the range. A percent sign is not required. The low value is automatically calculated. High value percent, enter a percent of the base fair value to set the high end of the range. The percent sign is not required. The high value is automatically calculated. Alright, so I just want to show you these are two additional fields the minute you select a fair value range checking policy. Right, so let's go to this fair value price. Now you'll see there's nothing in this fair value range checking policy field, and you'll see that these ones are grayed out. Okay, so the moment I pick something here, they suddenly become available. Okay. Alright, so I'm actually going to use boundary here. I quite like boundary. If you look at the field help, boundary, if the discounted sales amount is between the high and low values of the range, it is used as the calculated fair value amount. Right, if it's inside that range. If it is outside the range, either the high or low value is used, whichever is closer to the discounted sales amount. Fair value, if the discounted sales amount is outside the range, the calculated fair value is used. High, if the discounted sales amount is outside the range, the high value is used. Low, if the discounted sales amount is outside the range, the low value is used. So it really just depends on your specific business requirement. I'm going to go with boundary, and then I've got these additional. Right, so let's just quickly see there. Enter a percent of the base fair value. So let's say 50, and then it works it out. Did you see that work it out right there? And if I put 150, and then it calculates that to 275, which is 250 times 1.5. Okay. Alright, so then the next field here is units type. This list is available only when the multiple units of measure feature is enabled. Now if I go here to my price record, you'll see I do actually have an option there, and so I do have my multiple units of measurement enabled. Is VSEO price? Let me just quickly show you what this VSOE price is. I do not have this feature. The VSOE feature is a feature of NetSuite Classic Revenue Recognition. So this is the old revenue recognition. Classic revenue recognition features are not available in new NetSuite implementations. Alright, so I'm not going to deal with VSOE. Alright, so start date and end date. These fields enable you to set up fair value prices for future use. When a revenue arrangement is created, its date is checked against these dates. Use the following guideline for these fields. You can leave both dates blank, which is what I'm going to do. You can enter a start date and leave the end date blank. You can enter end date and leave start blank. The end date must be later than the start date. Alright, so here's my start and end date. I'm going to leave them blank. Fair value dimension. When you add fair value dimensions, they appear in a fair value dimension group below the primary information. Now, in my previous video, I actually dealt with fair value dimensions. I created a subsidiary fair value dimension, and then in the video, I also created class. So they sit here under fair value dimensions. Sorry about that. Each dimension list includes the following values in addition to the dimension values for the account. Any. When you select this value, the fair value price may apply to all items regardless of their dimension value. This is the default. If another fair value price matches the dimension value exactly, that fair value price is used. Unassigned. When you select this field, the fair value price applies only to items that do not have a value selected for the dimension. Okay? Click and save. Right? So I'm going to save that, and there you have it. Alright, to copy a fair value price, go to the fair value lists. Right, so I can just show you here, I can make a copy, and there you go. So you've obviously got to change some of the details, otherwise you've got exactly the role, but that is as simple as making a copy is.